right. Welcome to Philly Sports Network's live draft, or rather live free agency. That's how crazy the day's been. Live free agency show. It's already been an insane day. It's only going to get crazier. So we're going to be kind of your central hub, talking about all the deals going on, all the rumors going on around the league. Huge day. Some things that we didn't even think were possible. Lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's just go over everyone who's here. Of course, myself, Zach Ciavolella, here with Sean Barnard. Sean, how you doing, man?
Doing good. It's definitely been a whirlwind today. So everything's keeping me on my toes. I'm sure there's gonna be more that surprised me already today, but I'm looking forward to it. You can't beat the NBA as far as an entertainment value. Best television in the world.
No, absolutely, 100% agree. And it's better than any soap opera. It's better than any reality drama, anything like that. And Justin, I want to hear what you have to say on this because it's just been like when I say it's been crazy, it's been like next level crazy, right? So, how's your day been?
It's crazy. I was like trying to nap with my son, and I kept getting called. I'm like, what is happening? And then I start seeing everything, and it's just like it's ridiculous. First thing, NBA has no off season.
Yeah.
Like it's come to that point where it's literally all year round. Like some other sports, I mean, they have a lull between, maybe their free agency. You have some things here and there, but this is literally no off season. The finals just ended, literally 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So, I'm just excited. I'm surprised. I'm just ready to see what's popping.
Yeah, absolutely. We are now 13 minutes from the official start of NBA free agency. Anthony Gonzalez checks in saying, finally, the day has come. Now, Anthony could be referring to a number of things because there's so much going on. Most likely, obviously, the Philadelphia 76ers are about to approach free agency, which is always exciting in and of itself. But it's even more multiplied, basically, by the news of James Harden taking denying his option and taking the contract supposedly for less, which we should find out more details of next within the next day or so. Also, in addition to that, the news of PJ Tucker most likely becoming a Philadelphia 76er again, probably tomorrow. Sounds like there's a meeting between the Sixers and both of those two players tomorrow. But the biggest news of everything today, doesn't matter what team you root for, okay? The biggest news has been Kevin Durant officially demanding a trade from Brooklyn. Now, listen, this isn't, it's not 100% a surprise. We've been able to read the tea leaves as far as this goes, but for it to actually happen is a whole nother story. So, Sean, what does this demand mean to you, and what does it mean for the league?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, it's obviously a colossal failure in Brooklyn in terms of they had assembled what was perceived as the best big three of all time, three of the greatest superstars in the modern NBA, and won a total of one playoff series together. They played a total of 16 games together. So completely disappointing how that turned out. I think a disaster beyond what was expected. Now, granted, there was a ton of outside circumstances that dictated that as well. When we talk about obviously the vaccine thing with Kyrie, they got in the way. Harden had been injured throughout. Kevin Durant had been injured throughout. So it wasn't purely a clash of egos in the way I think it's kind of be portrayed in the long run. But that being said, that still doesn't make it too much easier to swallow. And how this has shaken out with, obviously we saw Harden forcing his way to the Sixers last year, being very heavily criticized by the Brooklyn faithful. And it's kind of cool to sit back here and see that Harden may be kind of the sane one in the situation and that he may have gotten ahead of the curve and the storm that is now coming. So it's very interesting. Kevin Durant is obviously still one of the premier talents in the NBA, and just about every team should have an interest of him, as seems to be the case. So there's going to be a monstrous trade package from someone on the way, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. You're muted.
Appreciate it. I said you talked about James Harden, how it shockingly appears that it was not all his fault after all. You mentioned earlier, I think a few days ago, you talked about how people have got to owe James Harden a pretty big apology for what they had said to him at the time when he was leaving Brooklyn, even thereafter. Because in the past few days, what we've seen from James Harden is that he was anything but the problem in Brooklyn, right? And B, he's just sacrificed likely over $10 million so that way the Philadelphia 76ers can have a lot more financial flexibility this offseason and put together a winning team. So between those two big, I thought you'd have like an ancillary thing like, Shams Charania is saying how he started working out earlier than he normally does in his offseason. And we've seen him working out, and that's great. That's fantastic. It's a distant 3, but all this said, and James Harden, he's gotten a lot of crap for seemingly no reason, because he seems to have answered or addressed like all these issues, and has proven himself just to be nothing but it's tough to say this considering how he played his last game in the 2021-2 season, but nothing but a professional and a guy who just wants to win. I mean, Justin, what do you think about what Harden's shown this offseason? And let's talk about your general excitement to have him coming back to Philadelphia.
I mean, definitely caught me by surprise. I mean, he did say that he would do everything he can for this team to be a winner, but as a lot of people
saying it and doing it, 2 different things,
right? So a lot of people were saying, like, especially recently today, and more so Brian Windhorst, that he's just recognizing the part of the career he's in, and sometimes you have to take a sacrifice or if you want to be a champion. And I mean, we talk about James Harden and his legacy. He can go down as one of the best scorer of all time, or one of the best scorers of all time. Definitely already one of the top 75 players, top 4 shooting guard of all time. Like, these are all these accolades that he has. And if he wins a championship, although his legacy is already cemented, that would just catapult him into some of those different type of discussions. So, in my opinion, him, I'm excited that, 1, it seems like he's putting the team first. 2, the fact that he understands that he has to play second fiddle and, get some of the guys, like, let's lean on Joel, who Joel wants. I can play with anybody. I can make anybody better, but let's, like, get some guys that Joel, wants, and, let's build around me and him, and let's make this push for this next 2 seasons. Let's go all in for these next 2 seasons, or next 2 or 3 seasons, and go from there. And, it's a good thing to see. A lot of stars don't sacrifice. You see it far few in between. You see a guy like, although we talk about it, but like Steph Curry, like with KD coming in there, kind of like sacrificing, just being the main cog and all that stuff, just putting that stuff aside and, working to get a championship. And I think, that gives me a lot of hope that this team was all on the same page. The major players, whether it be Daryl, Joel, and James, they're all on the same page. Hopefully Doc can get on the same page too, because that's another thing we could talk about later. But it just makes me excited for the season. It makes me excited to see who they're able to get in free agency and kind of move on from there. But it's just like, it's just crazy that literally the narrative is changing on James Harden by the minute. Like, from the fact that he was washed and he quit and all this, to now that he saw the writing on the wall and, he really was hurt and he's training early and he's sacrificed. This is crazy how the narrative changes, but I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a great time. Jonathan checks in, Jonathan, we are happy to have you here watching too. Happy to provide that for you. Just an exciting time. And Anthony checks in talking about, second fiddle, talking about James Harden, like you just said, Justin, but obviously, Tyrese Maxey on the way. Jordan just checked in. Hi, Jordan, what's up? Fanatics saved the day. It definitely looks that way, man. I'll be honest with you. Like,
no, it definitely.
I don't know how you can prove it, but it definitely looks that way.
The backdoor deals are happening.
Yeah, no complaints.
I mean, listen, like Michael Rubin, like he might be, like all-time Philadelphia GOAT for helping contribute to all this stuff, but Maxey, obviously he's on the rise. He might be on his way to Brooklyn. We don't know. We don't know. It's it's one or the other or both, but yeah, so far so great in Philadelphia. Let's kind of knock into these Kevin Durant rumors, since Anthony brought up Maxey. Like, when you look at a package for Kevin Durant, right, his first 2, let's call them preferences, are rumored to be Phoenix and the Miami Heat, right? So the Heat, obviously, they have a solid package of kind of like lower tier young players, Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro. When you look at Phoenix, I mean, you have DeAndre Ayton for a sign and trade. You have Mikal Bridges, very solid young players. Brooklyn apparently wants Devin Booker. I don't know how the hell they think they're going to swing that. When you look at what Philadelphia can offer, Tyrese Maxey is the number 1 asset, like by far. But Sean, do you think that there's a package they can kind of put together, like that can be at least competitive, or is it really just going to need Kevin Durant digging his heels in and saying, I want to go to Philadelphia?
Yeah, to jump in first, there's a report from Jason Dumas who said that it's unclear whether Kevin Durant is interested in joining the 76ers, but Joel Embiid has made it clear to management that he wants them to exhaust every option in trying to acquire Durant. So that is the seal of approval from Joel Embiid, which is a big deal here, and the green light, which is a pretty clear reason to give it, in my opinion.
So I have to go right off of that. Like, kind of give a huge shout out to Jack Settleman, right, for everything that he said. Everyone was talking about Phoenix, Miami. In comes Jack Settleman, who he's got a huge following. There are a lot of people who know where he is. He's not known for breaking news stuff like this, right? So he comes out and he talks about, in addition to Phoenix and to Miami, the Philadelphia 76ers are making a push for Kevin Durant. It makes sense that they made a call. Like, half the league's making calls apparently. But then it goes on to say that specifically Joel Embiid is making a strong push to get Kevin Durant to Philadelphia, right? He got a lot of crap, social media, sports radio, everything like that. And listen, I can't verify his sources, obviously not, but we got the right answer, you know? So how can you argue there?
Yeah, and to get back to your initial question about a package, I mean, it's difficult. You're going to be faced against the best offers from just about every team in the NBA. Tyrese Maxey is obviously the prize that we would be kind of weighing there. It would obviously be heartbreaking to give him up, but you do it for Kevin Durant in a heartbeat. The lack of picks is probably my biggest concern in actually getting it done. The Sixers just frankly don't have picks to trade. The stipend rule is a major hurdle to get over. You can try and flex in some pick swaps or something like that, but the reality is, like, other teams are going to be offering way more in that category. And for this Brooklyn Nets team, whose cupboard is already fairly bare in their draft picks, I think that's going to be a desirable thing they're going to want back. The Houston Rockets are a big winner of today, who possess the Nets picks and could be looking at an upgraded value in them for sure. So I don't know. I don't see the path for Kevin Durant be leading to Philadelphia, but I would love to be wrong on it.
Yeah, it's a very big, huge hurdle for Philadelphia, right? When you look at their future picks, 23 is unprotected, 25 is protected. It's kind of a unique situation where it's, I want to say, is it lottery or top 8 to Oklahoma City? But the point is that it's protected for 25, 6. I want to say up through 28 even. But of course, the 2027 pick from Philadelphia is also owned by Brooklyn. Basically, if it doesn't go to Oklahoma City, then it goes to Brooklyn. So what you'd effectively have to do is you'd have to circumnavigate that whole situation as best you can, which basically looks like 29 pick swaps. And you can possibly remove the protection on 27. Again, 23 is already unprotected, but I think removing the protection on 27 is more of a sweetener. If anything, it kind of just, it won't make the deal, Yeah. Anthony checks in and he talks about not having the draft capital, the star power. It's a real concern. Other than Tyrese Maxey, other than 2029 unprotected, which that's really far out, right? An unprotected pick 7 years from now, definitely some potential value there, especially when you expect Philadelphia's,
window to close.
Window to close, exactly. Just thank you. So yeah, definitely some value there. It's just, can you compete with Phoenix? Can you compete with, with Miami, whatever the case may be? So, Justin, what are your thoughts, man? Is this something?
I have a few thoughts. So first, right. So, Anthony, definitely not the draft capital, but like you said, and also I'm sure besides the package that will probably be, for Kevin Durant, like player wise, you could try to make some moves to try to get a couple picks where you can move them later on down the line or have those picks available. But like, first of all, none of the teams who are listed as his preferred destinations, like Jake Fisher said that the conversation will start with Devin Booker. Like, I had negotiations to start with Devin Booker, but everybody else is saying DeAndre Ayton. And when you look at, and then same thing with Miami, like you have to talk about Jimmy Butler, but people are bringing up, okay, Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero, whatever the case may be, Kyle Lowry, you want to throw that name in there. Like, if you look at some of these teams that have the ability to put something together and win a championship now, they're not going to give up. They're not going to want to give up their star players if they feel like they have a championship core and you add Durant, it puts them over the top. So unless you're sending Durant to a young team or a team that's like middle of the road and Durant can kind of pull them into contender, but they may not necessarily win a championship, then you may be able to, you might be able to put something crazy together. But when you look at like DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson, and Mikal Bridges and picks, like, cool. Like, I mean, I'm not a big fan of DeAndre Ayton, so I don't want to bash the guy, but like, to
Real
me,
quick, DeAndre Jordan just signed with the Nuggets.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
601.
Oh man. Oh, they're pouring in right now. All right, let's take a quick break. Let's kind of go through all these one by one.
Okay.
So right off the jump, like Nikola Jokic signed to Supermax contract, 5 years, 264. It's the richest deal in NBA history. Right. Suns and Devin Booker, 4 years, 214, Supermax extension. He can sign that as soon as next week. Oh, he's also going to be on the cover of NBA 2K23. So that's kind of cool. This is Devin Booker.
Okay.
Malik Monk is finalizing a deal with the Sacramento Kings. Probably got that bag, I'm sure. DeAndre Jordan agreed to a deal with the Denver Nuggets. I saw like 5 others just pop up. I'm trying to see here. Bradley Beal staying in Washington for $251 max contract over 5 years to stay with Washington. Malik Monk, it's a 2-year, $20 million deal. Victor Oladipo staying. This is going really fast. Yeah. Victor Oladipo, 1 year, $11 million, returning to the Miami Heat. Isaiah Hartenstein, 2 years, $16 million for the New York Knicks. And let's see what else. PJ Tucker, 3 year, $33.2 million, fully guaranteed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Wow. That's a list. So there's a lot of important stuff there. Let's talk about Philadelphia first. So PJ Tucker, 3-year deal, neighborhood of $30 million. We knew that. Fully guaranteed. Does that surprise either of you?
No, because I mean, yes, because you think about his age, but no, because there were things coming today that Miami was actually willing to pay the full or give him the 3-year deal, but I'm sure, it wasn't going to be fully guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is what put them over the top to get PJ Tucker, but I'm not surprised. I feel like at this point, Daryl was just doing whatever to make Joel happy and try to put the team together. And we got to see the details on the final year. But I'm sure regardless what PJ Tucker's, his contract is, it's a tradable salary later on down the line if it's not working out. Yeah. So $10 million a year. If we're in the middle, if we're going into the 3rd year of his contract, championship's not won, whatever, expiring salary, send him out the door. You know what I mean? So I think that's what kind of makes it okay. But
at least so when you look at it, it's fully guaranteed. Wow, Anthony Simons, 4-year, $100 million contract extension.
Wow,
great deal for Simons.
I thought he was going to get 80. I thought he was going to get 80.
Listen, you kind of had to if you're Portland. But getting back to PJ Tucker, right? So with him, again, it's all fully guaranteed, right? So there's no Danny Green unguaranteed year. There's no club option on the 3rd year. That's just 3 years, 33, plus million, flat out even. I think you're absolutely right, though, on the point that it's still going to be a tradable salary, even if you have to come year 3. But Sean, he's going to be 40 by that 3rd year. What concerns do you have, if any? Are you excited by the move? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I am excited by the move. Realistically, you're looking at it, you're kind of not, obviously it still matters, but you're making this addition for this coming year. You're looking at winning in this coming year. And obviously there's collateral on the back end, and you got to deal with it. And it's to be determined how much he'll have left in the tank at that point. It's definitely concerning for a guy. I get he's labeled as like a low usage player, but the way his body takes a beating for the physicality he plays with, the high intensity defensive nature of his game, I don't think a low usage player is the right label for PJ Tucker. And it does seem bound to break down at some point. But granted, the Sixers have been missing PJ Tucker for several years. It's a guy that both Harden and Embiid have signed off on and giving glowing approvals for. A guy Joel Embiid mentioned specifically by name following the playoff exit. So you're making your guys happy. He's a complementary piece to both of your star players. And the Sixers have just needed this toughness, needed his ability and his play style for several years. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. There's still a little bit of work to do, but it's a valuable addition, and he's going to play a key role this year. even at 37 years old, I think PJ Tucker was the second most important player on the Miami Heat team that knocked out the Sixers last year. So he hasn't shown signs of slowing down yet, and that's the player that you're signing on to get.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and especially on your point about him being the second most valuable player for the Miami Heat last year. Bam Adebayo did not have a great playoff stretch, especially against Philadelphia, and
Nope.
Tyler Herro was kind of hit or miss as he went along, but Mr. Consistency, PJ Tucker, was huge for the Miami Heat. So definitely agree with you there. Quick update: Bobby Portis agreed to 4 years, $49 million to return to the Milwaukee Bucks. That's a pretty sizable deal right there.
That's a big money for Bobby.
Bobby's been crucial to Milwaukee, right? Let's not get it twisted. Like, he's been huge for them. I'm very happy to see that high of a number, though, for his contract, just because that will tie up some certain things for Milwaukee down the road. But I mean, it's already been just super fast, nonstop. These huge max deals. Nikola Jokic, the highest or the highest in value contract in NBA history, right? What do we think about that? Obviously, Jokic, like, listen, he is 2-time MVP. You can put, whatever fight up or asterisks you want next to it, but 2-time consecutive MVP, getting that kind of a deal. What do we think about the Supermax kind of overall? Joel Embiid's on the Supermax. Is going to kick in not this season, but the following. Are we pro Supermax? Do we not love the Supermax because it's going to effectively handicap your team going forward? What do we think? Sean, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I think you have to. It's a stage of the NBA where it's like if you're not willing to pay your guys, somebody else will. And these are both Jokic and Embiid are such crucial players to their franchise that you have to build around it and you have to pay whatever it takes to keep them. So I get like the financial constraints. It's obviously super intimidating numbers when you look at it like that.
Gonna interrupt you really fast. Breaking news: Daniel House is a Philadelphia 76er.
Love it.
So
love
the Houston Rockets coming back to Philadelphia. Now listen, this is actually a really good signing. Okay. Just because if you look at how Daniel House played last season, I want to see the numbers. But when he was in Utah, I mean, Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about when he was in Utah and the numbers that we saw? But he kind of revived his career almost. He was back on as a shooter with the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, shot over 40% from three last year. A guy that's kind of the low end. Did you see the number on it, Zach? I'm sorry.
I have not gotten the number yet.
No number yet, but people are speculating that it's the biannual exception.
It would make sense. Yeah.
That was my guess going in. He's a guy, another 3-and-D wing, a guy that like fits what the Sixers are looking for. It's like the category of player that the Sixers have been missing. I know people are going to get all upset about like the new age Rockets in Philadelphia, but the fact of the matter is both these guys fit the role that is what the Sixers need. So I have no issue with it. I like Daniel House. What do you have to say, Justin?
No, I was just going to tell Sean the Doghouse T-shirt is coming together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah, right before we get back to the Supermax conversation, anyone watching, anyone in the chat, feel free to let us know how you feel about the PJ Tucker signing, the Daniel House signing, potential Kevin Durant trade rumors. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about all those rumors and signings going on with the Sixers. But Sean, as you were saying with the Supermax,
yeah, it's just kind of the nature of it, and I think people get like caught off guard by the high numbers and like just how much money these guys are making. But I mean, hey, it's not our money to spend. Who cares what's going in their pockets? This is coming from the owners. And the fact of the matter is, like, if you flash forward to like 2050, these numbers are going to be looking way larger. So some of it is timing when they come into when it's time to cash their checks. And flash forward a couple years from now, and Embiid's contract probably isn't even going to be looking that monstrous. So I personally have no problem with it. It is what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, the cap's just going up and up. So I think you're right. At a certain point, it tends to not matter. So the numbers for Daniel House have.
Yeah,
sorry,
I was
Justin,
about to say go ahead. No, I was going to say the numbers drop, but you go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's all I was going to say. It's 2 years, $8.5 million. Looks like the biannual exception. I like the fact that it's a 2-year deal. I really don't mind this at all for Philadelphia. We got a wing who can shoot. There's no downside to this for me. And again, kind of like a Furkan Korkmaz size contract, it's very tradable thereafter. And just like Jordan says, I mean, we're getting that Mike Scott dog energy back, so it's a super exciting time for Philadelphia.
Yeah. I think that like the Daniel House move, I mean, like you said, we talk about the getting the Rockets back together, whatever, but these are the type of, like you said, these are the type of players that we're missing. Those true 3-and-D wings, the guys that you can really have on the court in the fourth quarter when it comes down to it, and they're not zeros on either side of the court. Like that's just really what it comes down to. And unfortunately for a guy like Korkmaz, like, I mean, to me, I think he's definitely out the door now. Because the minutes, will for a wing will go to a guy like House. And I guess we'll see who else they get for vet minimum or whatever the case may be. But or any trades that happen. But I like the move. It's crazy because it feels like Daniel House was like almost out the league.
Yeah.
He was. Well, if you look at what happened, he was stuck on the he was stuck on a Houston Rockets team, right? That they were making a push for the youth, right? He didn't really fit their timeline. So Daniel House goes from Houston, he gets bought out, he goes to the New York Knicks first. He plays 3 minutes. He played 3 minutes for the New York Knicks, didn't score a point. They cut him. Then he goes to Utah, and the man comes right back. He's an actual contributor, 6.8 points. I forget the 3-point percentage number, but it wasn't bad, and it wasn't on bad volume either. But for Daniel House, it's really a renaissance of sorts. 6.8, like I said, 41.5% from three on 3.3 attempts per game. Yeah. That's pretty solid volume, and that's a pretty solid role on a in their mind contending team. So to have Daniel House back, he's not going to be the sixth man. He's not going to be. Tyus Jones returns to the Memphis Grizzlies, 2 years, $30 million. Because but he's a well-fitting piece. DeAnthony Melton, you have Daniel House, and you have George Niang, Paul Reed. Your bench is shaping up quite nicely pretty early
on. We have Mo Bamba back to the Magic.
You got to be kidding me. Somebody's got to stop that. That's not right. Somebody's got to set him free. I'm so sick and tired of watching Mo Bamba. Listen, I don't even care if he goes to the Lakers. I saw somebody tweet out, I forget who it was, or I'd give him credit. They just want to see the pick and roll between him and LeBron so they can call it La Bamba. But there just needs to be, I want to see Mo Bamba just somewhere else to see how he plays. Because with Wendell Carter, with Mo Bamba, first of all,
Paolo.
Well, yeah. Paolo's playing the 4, so that means that Carter can't play the 4 as much, which means that he's going to be taking a lot of minutes away from Bamba. So I don't know. I do like it for Orlando because you retain the value and you can still trade him at the deadline. Very tradable contract. I don't know. I wanted to see him go to Dallas or something like that, where he can just be kind of unleashed and we can see what happened. But Anthony checks in. He says it's a little much for PJ, but we really needed him and he loves getting House. So first of all, again, anyone throw in your opinions of Daniel House, PJ Tucker, Kevin Durant rumors, James Harden taking less, anything Sixers you want to talk about. But to Anthony's point, we absolutely did need PJ Tucker. It's about more than basketball. It's about the relationship with James Harden, and more importantly, the relationship with Joel Embiid, right? James Harden, I truly believe, is not taking less or this amount less unless the talented player that we bring in is also PJ Tucker. I think that factored very much into that decision as well. So to get PJ Tucker, I think it's important to Harden. It's clearly important to Embiid, just like you said earlier, Sean. He asked specifically by name for PJ Tucker.
Right.
And the Philadelphia 76ers have done a lot of things that I won't claim have pissed Joel off, but certainly could very well have pissed Joel off. And we've seen what happens when you piss off star players, i.e. Kevin Durant.
Right.
Can't do that. You can't do that, right? You got to make sure you keep Joel Embiid happy. They've built the entire team around Ben Simmons for years, pushed Joel to the side. Now's the time that you show that you're committed to winning with Joel Embiid. And by bringing in players like PJ Tucker, you're doing exactly that. Sean, is that truth or am I out of my mind here?
No, absolutely. Keeping Joel Embiid happy is the most important part of this franchise. The outlook of this organization drastically changes if his outlook changes. And also, I would kind of like to fight back against this anti New Age Rockets narrative a little bit. I don't think that team gets enough. Yeah, I don't think that team gets enough credit for how good they actually were at the time. And the key part that's missing in all this is picture that team with Joel Embiid on it. That's the differentiating factor when we're talking about this. Regardless of what the complementary pieces are, this is still Joel Embiid's team, and that changes everything for the outlook. And realistically, that Rockets team, obviously they're all a little younger at that point, but that Rockets team, as it was constructed, has made it just as far as the Sixers have, and as far as competing for a championship. So I think looking at players who are perfect fits around Harden and Embiid, that's a fine area to pick for. I think Daniel House and PJ Tucker are both excellent fits. And I don't think that team gets enough credit for really how close they were. They took the Warriors to 7 games and like an all-time great Warriors team. So as much as like you would like some outside creativity, I don't think they're bad moves whatsoever.
Yeah, 100% agree. Daniel House is going to fill in that Korkmaz role that, unfortunately, I like Korkmaz. He wasn't even doing it well himself. So I do think kind of, Justin, like you said a little bit, that you're going to be looking at Korkmaz probably eventually out of Philadelphia, I imagine. But he's at least not going to be in the everyday rotation, I would think, from the jump. Just because if you look at who's currently – just a couple quick updates, actually, before I get to that. Wow. So, Sean, I hate to tell you, but Wesley Matthews is going back to the Milwaukee Bucks on a one-year deal.
See that.
I know that's a guy that you really liked. Would have been great in Philadelphia. Would have had to have taken the vet minimum, but goes back to Milwaukee. Amir Coffey. This is actually a good signing. Amir Coffey is a 3-year, $11 million deal with the Clippers. After the Clippers signed John Wall, I wasn't sure that they were going to be able to do it, but they found a way to get Amir Coffey back in LA, and that's really good for a Clippers team that's trying to compete for a finals appearance next year. Javon Carter goes back to Milwaukee. Damian Jones goes back to, or rather, no, agrees to a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. So a lot of moving, a lot of shaking going on, some smaller pieces. Like the real big guys signed right away. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Nikola Jokic. Now we're seeing some of the smaller guys go through. When do we expect to see guys like, Otto Porter, Gary Harris potentially find their new teams? When do you think that might be, Sean?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Sixers are at 15 rostered players now, including Harden, obviously, who hasn't officially inked his deal. Otto Porter is definitely a name that I'm interested in. I don't think Morey's done. I think the trade market is still something very valuable. So as much as we're talking about this, for Otto Porter specifically, that's somebody the Sixers should absolutely get involved in, assuming there's room. Keith Smith also just tweeted that the 76ers are now hard capped at the tax apron by virtue of using the full non-taxpayer MLE to sign Tucker and the biannual to sign Daniel House. Is that true that they're hard capped now?
Yes, they're hard. After you use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, then you are hard capped at the tax apron. But the whole point of Harden signing for so much less was to not only allow them to use the non-taxpayer and the biannual, but to also give them a little extra breathing room. Whether they could negotiate that in a trade or however the case may be between where they are and the tax apron. So they're not necessarily pushed to the point that they're done. Okay. They just have a set finish mark where they can end. They can't go any higher than any point during the season. So
gotcha. Okay.
Now, Justin, I want to bring up something that you actually just let me know. Joe Ingles went to the Bucks too.
Yeah.
Yep. 1-year deal.
Wow. Look at that. On a 1-year deal. Okay. He tore his ACL. Does anyone know what month he tore his ACL in? No. He tore his ACL last season, January.
Yeah.
It's tough at that age to fight back and really contribute next season. So, it's not a high risk move, obviously, for Milwaukee, but definitely something that, we'll see how much it pays off.
Also, shout out at Mike JD57 in my comments who remind me I forgot about the scene of Daniel House sneaking a girl into the Orlando bubble. So forgot that happened. What a valuable addition to the team. So we got that.
Great asset. Yeah. Great asset. One of the few bubble heroes, maybe TJ Warren's next,
Yeah. But they were saying that
Lou Williams is also available.
But they said he took the heat for somebody too. There was rumors that he took the heat for Harden, but whatever.
He didn't snitch.
That's a team guy then. If that's the case, I'm even more in on him.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Chris Boucher is returning to the Toronto Raptors. 3 years, $35.25 million.
So that's why
Chris Boucher, he's a good piece. He's fine. Freaking kills the Sixers.
Every time.
That's the only reason that I care that he's with Toronto.
And that's why I thought, I was thinking in my head, if somehow Mo Bamba went to the Raptors, I'd have been like, oh my goodness, dealing with Mo Bamba with the Raptors too. I'm like, yo,
as is Mo Bamba every time they play each other.
Yeah.
But he hit 8 threes the last time we played him.
That's true. Oh, he did have that one good game that where he was from outside. All right, Lou Dort, 5 years, $87.5 million to stay with the Thunder.
Wow,
that's a deal.
Yeah,
that's a great deal for him.
That's a great deal for him. Absolutely. You go from what was it, 1.8 was his option to that?
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
That's that's pretty great for Lou Dort there. Not
Yeah,
that he
that was
doesn't deserve it, because he definitely does. Yo, I'm seeing Houston Rockets Sixers logos drop already, and it's beautiful, I gotta say. But all right, so let's talk about Lou Dort for a second, right? What do we think about? I'm trying to post in the comments. I don't think I can that image. What do we think about Lou Dortz deal? That's been a big surprise to start off free agency. I'll say just the size of it. I mean, you're talking about a deal that big for Oklahoma City to give that out right now. Is that surprising to anyone?
A little bit, I'll say. First off, he's a guy that I would have loved for the Sixers to get involved in. I think that price range is probably definitely what scared them off. I don't think that was something that Morey has in the books, considering all the juggling that they're already doing. Lou Dort's awesome. I'm a huge fan of him. If the Thunder prioritize him as a long-term piece, which obviously they're indicating that they do, then the money makes sense. That's kind of like the vision. It's a little bit of a deal. Not that he hasn't been very good already, but it's a little bit of a deal. I think they're hoping that he's going to take the next step and continue to develop. It's going to be interesting to see what his ceiling is, but he's pretty much what you look for in a modern kind of 3-and-D starting caliber wing. So good for Lou Dort, and hopefully it works out for the Thunder as well.
So I just saw the Joe Ingles news, and it looks like his wife broke the news of his signing. I just want to say that's like the coolest thing that I've ever seen. That's totally awesome.
Yeah.
So Joe Ingles to the Bucks again. Nick Batum just now 2-year deal to return to the Clippers. Now here's the thing about Lou Dort, though, to go back to him for a second. Like, this doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be in Oklahoma City for the next 5 years. I think more likely than not, he is going to leave the Thunder at some point. That all depends on when they're actually ready to be competitive. We'll see. This actually makes him a very or rather, I guess the better way to phrase it is that he's a much easier to trade asset now at this salary figure. So definitely something that makes sense for Dort, and it actually kind of makes sense for the Thunder too if they are going to end up moving on from him, because now you can package Dort along with some other pieces in a deal to perhaps land a star, which is, I mean, that's processing 101, is that you acquire draft picks and you acquire assets to acquire a star. Like that's it. So increasing the salary there definitely could help them with that. What do we think about the Philadelphia 76ers season so far? Are we disappointed by anything? Did we really think that maybe PJ Tucker wasn't going to be it for the Sixers, and that perhaps a guy like Otto Porter or Gary Harris is going to take that spot? What do we think in the comments? Guys, feel free to let us know. And I think that it's time to talk about Kevin Durant a little bit, because the Brooklyn Nets are apparently not interested in DeAndre Ayton. So when you combine that with the fact that Devin Booker is their alleged, not their asking price, but they want him involved in the deal, I don't know about you guys, but it sounds like Phoenix isn't overly likely of a destination for him at this point. So if that's the case, and Miami's whatever, like, I don't love Bam Adebayo, I don't love Tyler Herro. They're what, to me, Tyrese Maxey's more valuable than both of them. Not necessarily combined, but just, when you look at it separately. So what are we feeling about Philadelphia's chances? Are they possibly going up with all this talk about Phoenix and the deal not working out?
Yeah, they've moved to the second favorite, or the second betting favorite for him as the landing spot. And also Bam Adebayo cannot be traded for him for another weird NBA loophole. So the Sixers, it has to do with, I forget what the exact phrasing was, but they have been.
You can't drop that in. I'm going to need you to figure that out for me.
He's been extended on the rookie, basically the rookie extension. You can't trade for a player that's on that extension if you already have a player on your roster with that extension as well. It's like some solid. So he's not eligible. And Devin Booker, since Devin Booker wasn't available either, but now since he signed this new, because this is not Devin Booker's rookie extension, this is the second extension, now he would be eligible. But technically, if he was tried to be traded before this number that he just got, he wouldn't have been available either.
Yeah, you can't have two designated rookie guys, is the phrasing. So
yeah,
first of all, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Second of all, we have another Houston Rocket who just became a Philadelphia 76er.
Oh, yeah. I love Trevelin Queen.
Trevelin Queen. All right, Sean, talk to us about Trevelin Queen.
All right, so how I was first introduced with Trevelin Queen was in the G League final when he got ejected from the game against the Bluecoats after scoring almost 30 points on him. He's a guy, when we talk about bringing that dog in him, that's him. Like, he's a guy that will get in your face, ready to fight. And the G League announcers complain the whole time about how it distracts from how good he is as an on-court talent. But when we're talking about, like, bringing intensity, that's him. So I love Trevelin Queen.
Okay.
What's that?
No, I was saying okay. Like, I love it. I keep going. Like,
yeah, no, he it was actually a weird in that very game. He kind of got ejected twice. They gave him a second technical and then reviewed it, took it back, and then he proceeded to get re-ejected like 5 minutes later. So that's how I
love
really,
it.
Yeah, that's my. I have more of a scouting report on that than his actual basketball play, but he can shoot a little bit.
It.
Yeah, bring him in, give him a chance. I love Trevelin Queen.
Side note, apparently the Miami Heat have submitted an offer to the Utah Jazz for Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, please. Yes. Go for Mitchell. Leave Kevin Durant to us. Go all in on Mitchell. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to drop the Dwayne Dedman news, but that's some real news there, Justin.
But no, seriously, like when you and just to pick up Dedman, okay. When you talk about the package, like literally when you look around the league and like you were talking about as far as like Phoenix and what they have to offer and stuff like that, like when you look around the league and honestly, and I'm not saying this just because I'm in Philadelphia and I'm from Philadelphia. Like I'm just looking at it holistically. We could talk about it. The Sixers having two young talented players, Matisse Thybulle being the defensive talent, Maxey being the offensive talent. Mm-hmm. Then you have Tobias Harris and whatever picks you can scramble up. That's better than Cam Johnson and DeAndre Ayton to me, and Mikal Bridges to me. Better than any Heat offer. I think.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Has Twitter shut down for anyone else?
No, mine is good.
I was gonna say because Twitter completely crashed for me, and even like trying to log in, it is all like totally screwed up. So okay, but as long as this, Sean, why don't you take over breaking the news until I get this sorted back up? But Justin, go right back to what you were saying.
Yep. So when you look at that, like if Boston Celtics got involved, of course Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. I just don't want to say Jaylen Brown, but Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown would probably be in the discussion. That would be better than a package. But when you look around, like Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, and picks, I mean, that's Jaylen Brown is definitely a star, a budding star. I mean, Toronto Raptors, they have some likable pieces where you would be able to try to go get Kevin Durant. Outside of that, like Detroit Pistons, I mean, you just look around the league because there's not a lot of packages where you can take it and determine like, okay, this is the best package that could beat the Sixers package. I mean, Sacramento, if they put together a package, they probably had to give up De'Aaron Fox, but does Kevin Durant want to go to Sacramento? No. So it's just like Memphis, maybe Jaren Jackson Jr., a package built around Jaren Jackson Jr., maybe like, I don't know. I just don't see a lot of a package built around Zion, maybe, or Brandon Ingram.
Jaren Jackson also has a stress fracture, which was announced. So kind of a bummer there. Going to be out 4 to 6 months. Big fan of his game. And that probably would interrupt the trade process as well.
Yeah. So the only other thing I could think of is everybody talks about the Lakers, of course, because Lakers and Heat are on everything, right? They are interested in every single thing. If I was LeBron James, I would call Rob Pelinka and I'd be like, hey, Rob, can you send Anthony Street Clothes Davis to the Brooklyn Nets and whatever else we got for Kevin Durant? I know I won a championship with him, but get him out of here. That would be the first call I'd make if I was LeBron James. That'd be the first call I would make.
Yeah.
But when you look at the packages, it's really not crazy to me. Like young teams that have all the assets, the young players in the picks, yeah. But if you're trying to do quote unquote right by Kevin Durant, does he really want to go to any of those teams? I don't know. I'm not saying the Sixers are going to get him because I don't think they are. But, We'll
Yeah,
see.
well, with Kevin Durant, and I don't believe this for a second, but I'm just going to say it. It has been brought up the possibility of KD and I apologize if this is repeating, but KD and Kyrie going to the Lakers, together. That still has to involve Russell Westbrook, though, right?
I would think so. Just
Yeah,
money
because you think it's Westbrook and Davis just based on salary.
Yeah, which would not be the most appealing flop if I'm Brooklyn. Most appealing flip.
Yeah, you add Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis to Ben Simmons. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a great shooting team right there. I don't understand how that works.
Jeez. Yeah, the spacing. We're talking about like 2019 Sixers bad, probably worse even.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
We'll see.
The Traveling Queen contract is a 2-year contract, partial guaranteed for $300K. So
Okay.
can't complain about that. He's a low end guy. The former G League MVP, I just found out as well.
Was he the MVP this past season?
21-22. So yeah.
All right.
So,
yeah. Okay.
Two G League MVPs on the same team.
Yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
Thad Young back with the Raptors, 2 years, $16 million.
Oof, that's a lot more than I expected him to get. Good for him.
Too. And to me, like, I know you guys are talking about Otto Porter. There's no way Otto Porter takes the vet minimum, right? There's no way, right?
I find it hard to believe. I mean, he did last year for Golden State. Golden State expects to part ways with him if he's going to take the vet minimum. You figure it'd be with Golden State, So if he's not going to, that means I think that he has a bigger offer somewhere else. That is somebody's mid-level, whomever it is. I don't know what Miami used to re-sign Dedmon to that. I think it was like 2 years, $9 million, something like that. But they should have, because Oladipo came in at 11. They should still have their taxpayer MLE. So something like that to bring him to Miami is still definitely a possibility. But I don't see him doing that for Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. If Kevin Durant is a Sixer, then I bet you he will.
Yeah. I'm getting more and more in on Traveling Queen. This last scouting report I read was 6'6", gets in your face and chucks threes. That works for me.
Yeah, he's only 25, so he's still young, I have no problem with this. I'm not so slowly being won over by all of this. So that's not bad at all.
Mm-hmm. It does look like it's probably the end of the Miles Powell era in Philadelphia.
Yes.
So a little sad there. I like Miles Powell. He was a guy that always seemed just thrilled to be there. Thrilled to kind of be living the dream of playing with the Sixers and that. Like even going to the games, I would always notice him just like kind of taking around, looking it in. So best of luck to him moving forward. Hopefully he lands somewhere. But a little bit sad there.
Yeah. I'm just seeing this now from Yams talking about Phoenix's offer being stronger. I mean, in theory it is. It depends on what Brooklyn wants. The problem is Brooklyn apparently does not want DeAndre Ayton. Apparently they do want Devin Booker. Phoenix does not want to give up Devin Booker. So it is a classic stalemate. On paper, does Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton seem like a better deal than Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and whatever else the Sixers can offer? Like, yeah, of course. But it's just a matter of having to be interested in those pieces. So is it the fact that Brooklyn doesn't want to, put a ton of money into a center because that doesn't typically work out for other teams? I think that has something to do with it. Ayton clearly thinks that he's a better player than he is, though I do think he is a talented player. So I think they would actually prefer to bank on Tyrese Maxey, although the value of Bridges and Ayton, just when you look at it on paper, is more. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Like, what is Philly's best offer for Kevin Durant? What do we think?
It's everything. It's you're unloading the clip with Tobias Harris for contract reasons. Tyrese Maxey, probably Matisse Thybulle, Jaden Springer, and just as many pick swaps as you can swing. I think, to me, it's the draft capital that's kind of the biggest hurdle here. I think that's what other teams have the leverage that the Sixers just simply can't offer. And for Brooklyn, I think that's going to be part of the equation that they want. I mean, like they've already dished out a ton of draft picks in the past and have pretty limited. They're going to want picks back.
So do we think that because they want to go into a full rebuild, because you don't trade a first round pick of next year that you get for Royce O'Neal if you're not trying to stay afloat or just, be a solid team?
That was a very weird deal to me. That was probably one of the more surprising moves. Like in the middle of all this drama, just shipping off a first round pick for Royce O'Neal.
Like that's what confuses me. Like, okay, cool. Are we trying to build, a defensive oriented team around Ben Simmons, guys that can shoot and play defense? Is like that we're gonna do? I mean, to me, that doesn't sound like a tanking team. That just sounds like a middle of the pack team to me. I mean, so I'm like, draft capital, I get it, but are they going into a full tank mode? I mean,
maybe. I saw some theories that perhaps they had agreed to this before Durant had demanded a trade. My thing with that is they could have just backed out of the deal,
right?
Like there literally was time to back out of this deal. It's not like, we shook hands on it already. Like we gave them more work. Like, no, that didn't happen. Like, there definitely was a way they could have rescinded this if they didn't want to do it. But, they either believe in O'Neal that much, or they think that they're still going to be somehow, some way a contender next season. And maybe that's because they think they're getting Devin Booker, whatever the case may be. So this is just under my head for the first time. If the Nets have this Durant trade go the way that they want, we're going to have Devin Booker and Ben Simmons on the same team.
The Kylie Jenner squad.
Exactly. So, and Kyle Kuzma's on the block as well, I might add. So there might be a legitimate pathway to building a Kardashian lineup here. Awesome. The NBA's first full Kardashian lineup. So I kind of hope it happens now, just to see everything kind of blow up even more. But I don't know how it happens with and maybe it's just a bluff. Maybe it's because they want even more draft compensation in addition to Ayton and the Bridges, which is definitely something Phoenix can do. Like you said, Sean, it's kind of a struggle for Philadelphia to match anyone's draft compensation, basically, because most of the picks are at least that can be traded due to the stipend rule or Stepien rule or already in Brooklyn, or they're in OKC, like the 2025 picks. So it's not going to be easy. Again, I do think it depends on Durant wanting to come to Philadelphia, but what do we think about like the business side of things, right? So Kevin Durant, staunch businessman, right? He has his venture firm, whatever you consider, 35 Ventures, right? That's based in New York. He is a part owner of the Philadelphia Union. Now, the fact that I think it was Adrian Wojnarowski who said that that it's going to be not just Durant, but also his business partner / manager, Rich Kleiman, who are kind of orchestrating where he goes next. I mean, do we think that kind of factors into it at all? Is that kind of grasping at straws, or could there possibly be something to that?
Yeah, we heard with PJ Tucker that played a role in his decision, that was one of the reasons that he wanted to be in Philadelphia, was because of business ventures and wanting to be in the area. I don't kind of buy into it with Kevin Durant. I think it's different situations because of obviously PJ Tucker on the tail end of his career, kind of a settle down move. That's not quite the case for Kevin Durant. He's still very much in building his legacy mode, competing for championships and trying to play at the highest level. There's certainly something that pairing up with Joel Embiid is the best route to getting the more rings in the way that he's in search of. But I do think any move to Philadelphia would have to be strongly driven by KD. I don't know if business is really at the forefront of his mind right now, so I don't think it would hold too much weight personally.
Yeah, I mean, not number one for sure, but I think that you could say that he may listen. Let's say it does happen. It may have crossed his mind, basically.
Yeah.
He has, again, 35 Ventures. He has the Philadelphia Union, his brand new shiny deal with Fanatics, perhaps. There's a lot of potential business opportunity for Kevin Durant and a legitimate chance to win an NBA championship. So it's effectively, I would say, the best of all worlds, except for the fact that you don't get the climate benefit that you do in Phoenix or in Miami or wherever else he may be interested in. I mean, I'm surprised that Dallas hasn't come up, to be honest with you, just because of his Texas roots. And I know that they don't necessarily have the assets to make it work, but I just would have figured that he might be interested in it, but you never know.
I want to say something about Dallas. I saw something on Twitter today where they were talking about Dallas being interested in Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant, and somebody said, "How was Dallas interested when they got Luka and a bunch of 73 overall rated 2K players on their roster?"
I mean, to be fair, I'll take a few of those 73 2K players
for sure. But
I mean,
look at the roster,
and Bullock and Tim Hardaway Jr.
a
and
bunch of 77s.
Ooh, yeah. No, I hear you, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what Dallas does, right? So the one deal we didn't talk about, Jalen Brunson to the New York Knicks, right? That looks all but done.
A lot of money.
4
years, 111.
Before we get to what this means for New York for once again overpaying for a free agent, let's talk about Dallas. Who, what do they do? Like, how close are we before Luka demands a trade? Because his running partners right now, the two best players on his team other than him are Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, let's talk about that for a moment. Like, that's pretty crazy. Sean, do you think there's a real chance that within the next 2 years he starts, getting close to asking out?
I think they're still in the honeymoon period of they obviously made it to the Western Conference semifinals finals. Yeah. So they're in good graces there. The thing I will say is I think this is a potential spot where Morey could work his magic and say, you guys need Tobias Harris. And I think flipping Tobias Harris for a couple of the 73 overalls, maybe a Reggie Bullock and a Dorian Finney-Smith, some variation of those style of players and type of players who would be terrific fits on Philadelphia would work for both sides. So I think the Jalen Brunson leaving opens the door for that further. That's been one of the trades that I've kind of talked about throughout the offseason. And it's at least worth a phone call, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say so. I mean, the one thing that I'll say is I feel like there's no way, that you leave without Davis Bertans coming back in that deal. So, like, and that's a positive for Dallas, I feel, considering that he has it's $16 million he's making this year, and he's got 2 additional years after this one. Christian Wood's a Maverick. Yeah, I still like Dorian Finney-Smith better. So when you look at the rest of the team, Harris actually wouldn't be the worst fit next to Christian Wood. Like, you're already just like you don't give a crap about defense, right? You're already at that point. So Tobias Harris would step in and be one of your better defenders right away. So you'd be able to work with a lineup of they kind of like Dinwiddie off the bench, but I guess if you wanted to go. Yeah, probably go Bullock at the 2 if you ended up keeping him. So it's Doncic, Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, Harris, and Christian Wood. I mean, it could be worse, if I'm being flat honest. So I think you're absolutely right. Like a player like a Tobias Harris, like you could find yourself in need of a guy like that if you're Dallas, just because you need somebody who's going to put the ball in the bucket. So yeah, I mean, is there anyone in particular? I mean, obviously, Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, is the dream, but I call it the dream for a reason. But let's say him aside, who's your top guy in Dallas that you'd want to bring back in a Harris deal? Is it Reggie Bullock? Is it Tim Hardaway Jr.? Justin, what do you think? Who would be your top guy?
See, I'm thinking Reggie Bullock, and I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith, we already talked about him, but Reggie Bullock, and I like Tim Hardaway Jr. because he's I can get my own bucket guy, and you can never have enough of that. And he could do a lot more. Reggie Bullock is really just a high volume 3-point shooter. He's a good defender too. So he's a high volume 3-point shooter, but it's really like you have to do a lot of creation for him as well. I mean, although you will have James Harden, who would definitely get him open a bunch of times, but Tim Hardaway, he's a willing shooter, and he could do a lot more self-creation as well. Say if it's into the shot clock or on an all bench unit or whatever the case may be. I just think that would be something that would be worth more to the Sixers than just another guy who's going to stand around and just shoot a 3. It's just my opinion, though.
No, I hear you. Well, so we have been going on for an hour. It seems like things have really slowed down. Not really a whole lot of action going on now. There's going to be a lot more tonight. Tomorrow, again, the Sixers are expected to meet with James Harden tomorrow to discuss what his new contract will look at. Sean, what closing thoughts did you have about everything that we saw today and what's to come for Philly?
Yeah, I'm happy. They're positive steps in the right direction. We're retooling and getting the proper role players. I get we just picked up 3 Rockets and PJ Tucker, Trevelin Queen, and Daniel House, but I like all of them. I think they're good fits, and I'm excited to see how they fit on this team and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's kind of funny you looking at it that every single edition has been a Rocket. Queen was not a Rocket under Daryl Morey. Let's get that out of the way. I don't believe he was. Someone tell me that I'm not wrong here. Because he's been in the G League, right?
Yeah, he's. I don't want to answer wrong off the top of my head, but I believe you're correct.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I'm gonna claim that I'm right. He's never played a minute for Daryl Morey up until this upcoming season. So kind of like a half, former Houston Rocket in that regard. So even still, they're all exciting players. They all fit the needs of Philadelphia. These guys can shoot. They can, for the most part, defend. Daniel House a little less so, but still a little bit better than a lot of the current Sixers who saw playoff minutes. So not a bad deal at all. Just one last bit of news from Jake Fisher. Looks like Danilo Gallinari is deciding between Chicago and Boston. Looks like Boston is Danilo Gallinari's preferred landing spot. So not overly worried about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm about to say, if he goes to the Bulls, another guy that can't play defense, okay.
Oh, he fit great with Vooch. Yeah, no, fantastic. But Justin, what are your takeaways from today? How's your general feeling, your general mood going forward, and what do you expect coming this weekend?
So, my general mood is I'm glad. I mean, the number, PJ Tucker number is kind of high, but I mean, I guess you got to do what you do to make changes. We talked about this before. If you keep running it back with the same team over and over again and getting the same results, it's just not a good look. You got to make a change. So adding some of these other guys, and guys that, although they're Rockets, and we can talk about that, Daniel House, PJ Tucker, but these are guys that Morey trusts, that Harden trusts, and I'm sure Embiid named PJ Tucker. So he wants him. So I just just making everybody happy, and more so working some of those guys in and maybe making room for some other moves. So I do expect some other things to happen in the next couple of days. Of course, we'll get the James Harden number, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Matisse Thybulle trade or something like that, freeing up more minutes for a guy like Daniel House or whatever. Because if Matisse is on your team, you're going to play him, right? And he might start. But, I'm just looking forward to seeing what Morey does, because it's their whole thing. Windhorst said earlier today that don't be surprised if you see 3 to 5 new players in the Sixers when all things are all said and done. So
yeah,
that's what I'm looking forward to.
We're already at 3, so
yeah,
it's already gotten crazy. Trades are still a possibility, more free agents. I just watched a highlight of Trevelin Queen. Dude is an athlete. He can get up there. I mean, absolutely insane. I don't know the last time that we had a Sixer who could flush like he can. Just absolutely unreal. So I'm excited to see what he has. I'm excited for PJ Tucker. Again, it kind of is what it is. I love having Tucker. I do not regret it for even a second. Obviously, the number's high. Obviously, the years are long. I couldn't care less, to be honest with you, because he's who Joel wanted. He's who the Sixers need, and he's going to be great in Philadelphia. I have no doubt in my mind about it. And people talk about how, PJ Tucker doesn't get you a championship. And it's like, well, yeah, no one player gets you a championship. I mean, Kevin Durant's been the best player in the league for how many years? And he spent just 3 years in Brooklyn and hasn't gotten a ring the entire time. Like, just by having one player can certainly help, a Giannis level player, a Kevin Durant certain player, but there are like 5 players in that class every year, and usually at least one of them don't win, so to have a role player like PJ Tucker, that absolutely makes Philadelphia better. This team already, we already thought that with a healthy Embiid, they would have beaten the Heat. Now, take PJ Tucker off the Heat, add him to Philadelphia. How much more so? Add Anthony Melton, add Daniel House. This team already looks vastly different, and I couldn't be any more excited. So we'll see what happens on the horizon for Philadelphia. What'd you see, Justin?
No, I was just saying, I already forgot about Melton. So I'm like, oh, damn. He got better.
I'm telling you, this is going to be huge. Listen, I know we convince ourselves every year it's going to be our year, blah, 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 whatever, but listen, these are legitimate improvements made step by step. We have 3 legitimate role players, guys that you can actually play in the playoffs, that we have added to this team. We had 4.5 guys that could have been on the playoff on the floor during the postseason, or at least deservedly so. We've added 3 to that, right? Already. And there's still more work to be done. So it's been a great offseason already. There's still a lot to be done. I'm looking forward to it. But thank you so much to everybody who joined us, who contributed to the conversation. We'll see what happens with the Kevin Durant news. I'm still kind of, waiting bated breath. Phone's going to be on nonstop, basically, just waiting for that news. One last bit to leave you with is that Marvin Bagley has agreed. We're going to end on a Pistons note. Marvin Bagley has agreed to a 3-year, $37 million deal with the Detroit Pistons. Just goes to show, and he played well in Detroit, I think, for the most part. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of money left to be spent by a lot of these teams. So it's going to be super interesting. So thanks again for everybody for joining. I've been Zach Ciavolella. Sean, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your stuff before we go?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. You can check out my written work on Philly Sports Network and Clutch Points. On Philly Sports Network, I dropped my free agency previews for guards, wings, and centers. Talked about Daniel House on the wing piece, so you can check that out as well. And then check out Pick Swap Media and Pick Swap Podcast. Well, me and James will be dropping our free agent thoughts later tonight, so you can check that out as well.
Absolutely. And Justin, of course, my stunning co-host for the Baseline Scoop. Obviously, you work on PSN. Justin, I mean, I can't say enough great things about you since you joined. So definitely check out his work, my guy, 100%. As for me, at Zach Chavo NBA, would be honored if you followed my stuff. A lot of work with PSN, and I guess now's as good a time as any to announce this. But starting tomorrow, I'm actually going to be the site co-expert for Section 215. That is an addition to my Philly Sports Network work. So all that's still going to be happening, plus some extra great content with Section 215. So check out Section 215 for all your Philly Sports Network's needs, just as you should Philly Sports Network. But thank you all for showing tonight. Let's just have a great continued start to the offseason.